welcome, and thank you for being here tonight. Wherever you are, whatever kind of day you had, you can set it down now. The messages can wait. The list can wait. For the next little while, nothing needs you, and there is nothing you have to do. You are safe here. You can let your body grow heavy, and let your breathing slow. Tonight, we are going somewhere far away. Back to a time before alarms, before clocks, before there was any such thing as a job. A whole day, from first light to dark, with no schedule and no one waiting on you. People lived this way for longer than all of written history. And tonight, you get to live one of those days with them. There is nothing to rush toward. Just rest and listen and let the day carry you. You wake before the day has fully begun. There is no rush in it. By the time you lie down again tonight, beside this same fire, you may find yourself wondering who really had the fuller day. Them or us, but that is hours away. For now you simply lie there. You open your eyes all by yourself, just as the dark night starts to go away. The door of your cozy rock cave isn't pitch black anymore. It is a soft, quiet grey, and the morning light is tiptoeing across the floor. You don't move a muscle. You just lie there, feeling super warm and safe. You are in that cozy little bubble where you are still half asleep but just starting to wake up. It is the exact same happy, sleepy feeling that every person has felt since the world was brand new. And here is something strange and true. You may have already been awake once tonight. Long ago, before lamps and screens, people often slept in two parts. They would sleep for a few hours after dark, then drift up into a quite wakeful hour in the middle of the night. Talking softly, watching the fire, holding someone close, and then sink back down into a second sleep until dawn. It was not a problem to be fixed. It was simply how the night was shaped. So this waking now in the grey light is gentle. The body is ready. Around you, other bodies are close. Some are wrapped in skins. Some are curled on dried grass. A child shifts beside an older woman. Someone turns over slowly. No one jumps up. No one is rushing. The day does not attack you all at once. It arrives little by little, the way warmth returns to cold hands. The first thing that pulls you further awake is the chill. The warmth of sleep is leaving your skin. The air near the shelter mouth still carries the cool of the night. You draw the skin closer for a moment. Not from laziness, because warmth is a thing worth keeping. In a world with no heated rooms, no blankets waiting in a cupboard, no dry clothes in a drawer, the heat in your own body is something to protect. This is the first quiet difference between your world and the modern one. In the modern world, morning so often begins with pressure. A sound drags you out of sleep. A schedule is already waiting. Work begins at a fixed hour, whether the body agrees or not. But here, there is no fixed hour. There is no such thing as 7 in the morning. There is only the light, the cold, the hunger waking slowly in your belly, and the soft movement of the people around you. You do not live outside of time. You live inside a different kind of time. The time of the sun, the season, and the body. And once you understand that, understand almost everything about this life. Near the centre of the sleeping space, the fire has burned low. Most of it is hidden now, under soft grey ash, with only a few red points still glowing somewhere inside. This, more than almost anything else in the camp, is the thing that matters. Someone is already there. It is often the oldest among you, the ones who sleep lightly and wake before the rest. They crouch close to the embers, and with a small stick they open the ash, letting air slip down to the heat below. Then a few thin pieces of dry wood are laid across the glow. For a moment nothing, then a faint crackle, thread of flame, and the fire takes hold again. That small sound changes the whole camp. A few more eyes open. An older man lifts his head. A mother reaches for her child without fully waking. The group is returning from sleep one person at a time, drawn back together around this small point of heat and light. It is worth sitting with why this matters so much, because it is easy to miss from where we stand today. For us, fire is a choice. We turn a knob, press a button, flick a switch, and heat appears. For your people, fire is closer to a living thing that must be cared for. It warms the sleeping place through the cold hours, keeps dangerous animals back at the edge of the dark. It turns hard or risky food into something the body can use. It gives everyone a centre to gather around, to talk, to plan, to remember. Fire is shelter and kitchen and lamp and meeting place, all at once. So why not simply let it die and light a new one in the morning? Because making fire from nothing is hard, slow work. You may need dry wood, right tools, dry weather, and patient, skilled hands. One way is friction, wood rubbed against wood, faster and faster, until the heat itself begins to smoke and catch. Another is the strike of certain stones, throwing a spark into a small nest of dry tinder, breathing on it gently until it glows. Both can fail. Damp wood will not take. Tired hands lose the rhythm. A spark dies before it grows. Keeping a fire alive through the night is far easier than begging a new one back at dawn. And so the fire is never truly left alone. Through the dark hours, someone is always near it. Not always the same person, and never because anyone gave an order. An older person wakes during their light sleep and feeds it a branch. A young adult tends it before lying down again. The duty passes quietly from one pair of hands to the next, a shared habit rather than a job. This is how much of life works here. No one holds a title. No one says, "I am the keeper of the fire." But everyone understands that the fire must not go out, and so it does not. The person at the fire lays on a thicker branch now. It will not flare up quickly, but it will hold its heat far longer. This too is knowledge. The kind that looks like nothing until you try it yourself. Thin sticks wake a flame. Heavier wood keeps it alive. Damp wood only smokes and sulks. Some woods burn hot, others burn bright. And your people know the difference not from any book, from a lifetime of watching, trying, and remembering. As the fire steadies, the camp arranges itself around it. Mother settles with a child still, half asleep against her side. An older man warms his hands, turning them slowly in the rising heat. A younger person lifts a stone tool into the growing light and runs a thumb along its edge. The fire is the centre of the camp, and not only because it sits in the middle of the floor. It is the centre because heat pulls everyone toward it. Around this same fire, last night, food was cooked and stories were told. Now in the grey morning the day quietly begins in the very same place. There is one more gift the fire gives, and it is easy to overlook. It changes food. Raw meat can be eaten, but cooked meat is softer and safer. Certain roots are tough or even harmful when raw, yet become good food once the heat has worked through them. Warmth breaks food down before your body has to. So the body draws more strength from every bite. This was one of the great turning points in the whole human story. Fire did not only keep people warm, it helped feed larger brains and stronger groups, generation after generation. You do not think of it in those words, of course. Only know that food set near the fire becomes better. Roots soften in the ash. Old meat is warmed through. Strips of meat hung in the smoke will last for days. The fire stretches the value of food across time. And in a world where tomorrow's meal is never promised, that is a quiet kind of wealth. You stretch your hands toward the warmth, but not too close. Everyone here lives easily beside fire, because everyone has been learning since they could crawl. A small child drifts too near the edge and is gently drawn back. No scolding, no lesson spoken aloud. The lesson is simply the day itself, repeated softly until it is known. Fire gives life, and fire can burn. Flames are steady now. The hardest part of the morning is already done. The camp has its warmth again, its light, its centre, Post. And as you sit there in the slowly brightening shelter, with the others rising one by one around you, begin to feel the next thing arrive. Not a clock, not a task, but something older and simpler. Hunger. There is no breakfast here, not the way you know it. No table is waiting. No bowl, no cup, no set meal at a set hour. In this world, food does not follow a clock, follows the body. You eat when food is there, when your stomach asks, when the group has something ready to share. That is all. This can sound strange to a modern ear. Today we cut the day into 3 neat meals: breakfast, lunch, dinner. And they feel so natural that we forget they were ever invented. But they are far younger than hunger itself. For almost all of the human story, no one woke expecting a morning meal at a fixed time. People ate according to the season, the last good hunt, food saved in camp, and whatever could be made ready without wasting time or fuel. So you sit near the fire while the others reach for what is already there. Some food remains from the day before. A strip of cooked meat has been kept on the cool side of the shelter, wrapped in hide to slow its turning. It is not fresh, but it is still good. Someone cuts a small piece with a sharp flake of stone and passes it along. You take your share and chew slowly. The meat is tough. Your jaw has to work for every bite. That kind of eating leaves its mark on a body. If we could look at the teeth of your people, we would see them worn smooth and flat, far more than ours, simply from a lifetime of chewing food that fought back, meat that needed tearing, roots full of fibre, nuts that had to be cracked, seeds that had to be ground between stones. There were no soft loaves here, no sweet cereal, pot of rice waiting warm. Eating was simple, but it was never effortless. Near the edge of the fire, few roots have been resting in the warm ash since the night before. They were dug from the ground yesterday, and set close enough to soften, slowly, but not so close that they burned. Someone draws one out with care, breaks it open, and lets the steam rise off it for a moment before passing it round. The inside is soft now, and good. This is the quiet power of the fire again, working through the dark hours while everyone slept, turning something hard and bitter into something the body can use. So did your people live mostly on meat or mostly on plants? The honest answer is that it depended entirely on where they were and what the season gave. There was no single ancient menu. Far to the cold north, where winters were long and plants were scarce, people leaned more on animals. By the sea there were fish and shellfish, seabirds and their eggs, even plants from the shoreline. In the forests there were nuts and berries, roots and mushrooms, deer and smaller creatures moving through the trees. By the rivers were fish and water birds, and the green shoots that grow in wet soil. The land wrote the meal, and the land was always changing. This is one of the most important truths about your people, and it is easy to miss. They were not locked to one food. They never said, "We eat only meat," or "We eat only plants." They ate whatever kept them alive. If the nut trees hung heavy, nuts mattered for a while. If the berries ripened, people gathered berries. If a large animal was brought down, meat became the heart of the camp for a few days. If the hunt failed, as it often did, then roots and seeds and dried food carried everyone through. That bending, that willingness to take what the season offered, is a large part of why humans came to live in so many corners of the world. A creature that can only eat one thing starves when that thing is gone. A creature that can eat 50 things always finds something. Beside you, an older woman opens a small pouch and tips a few dried berries into her palm. They are not like fresh fruit. Darker, smaller, wrinkled. But the sweetness is still in them, gathered tight by the drying. This too is a kind of knowledge, simple and deep. When fruit is everywhere for a few short weeks, you eat some now and save some for later. Sun, wind, a little care can stretch a brief season of plenty into food that lasts into the hard months. There are no jars here, no cupboards, but there is still saving, still planning ahead. People keep what they can. A child reaches toward the berries too fast, and a hand gently moves the pouch back. The child is fed. Children are always fed first when food is short, but they are given a few pieces, then shown how to wait. No lecture, no raised voice. Just the small daily shaping of a person. Food is shared, not snatched. We'll see this everywhere if you watch. Every meal teaches something without anyone meaning to teach it. Nearby, someone cracks nuts against a stone. Not hard enough to crush the meat inside, firm enough to split the shell. And that exact pressure is its own small art. Grown hand that has done it 10,000 times can crack a pile quickly and lose almost nothing. A child usually smashes the good part or sends the nut flying into the dust. So the child watches, tries, fails a little, watches again, and slowly, years, the knowledge moves from the older hand into the younger one. There is something here that is hard for us to feel today, because so much of our food is private. We open our own packet and eat alone in our own room, but food in this world is almost never private. The group eats together because food and survival are the same thing. The hunter who brought meat yesterday does not keep it for himself. He may even eat less than the rest. The woman who dug the roots does not hide them for one family. Sharing is what keeps everyone alive. Today your food may come from someone else's luck. Tomorrow, someone else may live on yours. And this is not only kindness, though it is partly that. It is also memory. In a group this small, everyone sees everything. If a person hoards, the group remembers it. If a person gives freely, the group remembers that too. Generous people are trusted and helped when their own luck turns. Selfish people are quietly watched, so a shared meal is never only about filling a stomach. It is about who you are to the people around you, and who they will be to you when you need them. Food is one of the main threads holding the whole group together. The meal goes on without ceremony. Some people sit, some stand. A few keep their hands busy while they eat. One checks a cord of plant fibre, another turns a stone scraper over in the light. No one announces that the meal has begun, and no one declares it finished. It simply fades, the way hunger fades, as attention drifts toward the rest of the day. If you look at what is in your hands, you can read the whole land around you in it. The meat came from an animal that crossed the group's hunting ground. The root came from the wet soil near the water. The dried berries came from a bush remembered from a warmer season in a place known by heart. The nuts came from trees your people return to, year after year, when the time is right. Every bite is tied to a place, a memory, and a skill. Nothing here is bought. Everything is known. That is why the food knowledge of your people had to run so deep. They had to know which plants could be eaten raw, and which would sicken you, unless cooked, which were good only in one short season, which looked safe but were not. A root might be food after roasting and poison before it. A berry might be sweet when dark and harmful when pale. A seed might need cracking or soaking or heat before it gave up its goodness. These were not small details. These were the difference between a fed group and a sick one, and the line between them was thin. And no one ever wrote any of it down. There were no recipes, no marks on a page. The knowledge lived inside people. It lived in the old woman who knew the very week the roots were ready, in the adult who remembered where the nuts had been thick last autumn. It lived, half-formed, in the child watching from the side while pretending to be busy with something else. Knowledge here is not kept in books, passed from hand to hand, and from one quiet morning like this one to the next. You take another small piece of root and eat it slowly. It is not a feast. It is not anything a modern morning would recognize as a meal. But it is enough for now, enough to warm the body, quiet the stomach, and ready you for whatever the day will ask. That is what morning food does in this world. It does not start a schedule. It gives the group just enough strength to decide what comes next, and soon that deciding will begin. Someone will speak of the nut trees to the north. Someone will mention tracks seen near the water. The camp will start, anyone calling it to order, to shape the hours ahead. For now, there is only the fire, the soft sounds of eating, the slow brightening of the world beyond the shelter. There is no breakfast here, not really. There is only food and timing and memory, hunger. And in this early light, that is enough to carry the whole day forward. The meal is over, but the day has not yet chosen its shape. Sit near the fire, as the light grows stronger beyond the shelter. No one stands over the group. No one holds a list. There is no leader calling people to order, no bell, no plan written anywhere. And yet the camp is not lost. Everyone understands that choices have to be made this morning. And those choices begin, as they always do, with talk. Someone pushes a half-burned branch deeper into the coals. Someone else wipes a snowflake and tests its edge with a thumb. These are small sounds. A dry scrape, the shift of wood. But they tell you the camp is turning from eating toward doing. The morning is becoming a working thing. In our world, planning usually means a meeting. People gather at a table, check the time, divide the tasks, write it all down. Here, planning is softer than that, but do not mistake soft for careless. The group talks while sitting, while standing, while stretching stiff shoulders, while feeding a child or turning a tool over in the light. Words drift through the camp the way smoke drifts through the morning air. One person names a place. Another remembers a sign from yesterday. Third adds as a word about the weather. And slowly, out of all those small pieces, a plan begins to gather itself. The first thing on everyone's mind is food. Not in fear, not in panic, just the quiet, steady awareness that is always there. Everyone has eaten a little this morning. But the camp will need more before the light fails. And the question is never only where is the food. It is also who should go, and how far, and what they will carry, and whether it is wise to leave the others behind. The older woman speaks about the nut trees to the north. She remembers that this is the right turn of the season, and that 2 days ago she saw fallen shells beneath them. Fallen shells are a sign. They may mean the nuts are ready now, and nuts are worth a journey, because they are rich, they are easy to carry, and they will keep for the leaner days, if they are kept dry. Trip to the trees might be well spent. Another voice mentions the water path. Yesterday, someone saw fresh tracks in the soft ground near the river. The marks of an animal moving before sunset. Deer, perhaps, or something close to it. The hunters listen. But no one leaps up. A track is not a promise. The animal may be far away by now. The wind may be wrong for an approach. The camp may need its strong people for other things. So the tracks are set into the conversation, weighed and left there for the moment. This is how the choices are made. Not by command, but by laying out what everyone knows and turning it over together. Who saw the tracks? How fresh were they? Was the animal alone or with others? Did the marks show a calm walk or a frightened run? Good tracker can read a surprising amount from a patch of ground. But even good tracking is not certainty. It is memory and practice and careful looking, offered to the group so the group can decide. And here is the thing that is hardest for us to picture, because we are so used to someone being in charge. No single person leads this camp. Leadership here is not a seat that one person keeps. It moves quietly, depending on the question. When the talk is of plants, people turn toward the best gatherer, and her words carry weight. When the talk is of tracks, they listen to the finest tracker. When the talk is of weather, an elder who has lived through many seasons may be the one whose word settles it. No one needs a title for others to respect what they know. Knowledge itself is the authority, and it passes from one person to another as easily as the conversation does. So the talk goes on in short turns. There is no vote. But there is no blind obedience either. Someone suggests sending a small group to the nut trees. A younger adult offers to go because they are strong and can carry a full load. An older child wants to come along, and an adult nods because the path itself is a lesson, and learning happens inside real work. The child will not be treated as useless. They will carry a small share, watch closely, and begin to learn the way. As the plan forms, you can feel how much the whole thing rests on shared memory. No map spread on the ground. But inside the minds of these people, the land is crowded with known places, the hill where the berries ripen early, the shaded hollow where roots come up after rain, the narrow run where animals pass on their way to water, dry slope, where the good wood can be found. Each person carries a piece of this map, and together they hold the whole of it. It is worth pausing on how vast that knowledge really is, because it is easy to imagine these people as simple. They are not. A single person here may carry in their head the names and uses and seasons of 200 or 300 different plants, which can be eaten, which can heal, which can kill, when each is ready and exactly where it grows. And around that they hold the paths, the water, the dangers, the movements of animals across the whole turning year. None of it is written, or the walking libraries. The land is the book they have spent their whole lives learning to read. The group also thinks about who will stay. Not everyone leaves at once. Someone must keep the fire alive. Someone may need to mind the youngest children. Someone may be too sore or too tired to walk far today. And often an older person with deepest knowledge stay, not because they matter less, but because their presence holds the camp steady. They can tend the fire, watch the little ones, mend what needs mending, and remember the small things that others forget. There is no shame in staying. Work here is not measured by one kind of strength. Carrying a heavy load matters. Reading a track matters. Knowing where the safe plants grow matters. Keeping a child alive matters. Mending a basket so it does not spill its food on the long walk home. That matters too. The camp survives. Because all these different kinds of usefulness fit together, like stones in a wall, each holding the others in place. Someone glances toward the shelter mouth and says that clouds were building in the west before dawn. This changes things. If rain comes, the group should not wander far. Wet ground slows travel, damp wood is slow to burn, and rain plays its own tricks on the land. A light fall can make tracks easier to read, but a heavy one washes them away entirely. Weather changes the worth of every choice, and so it is folded into the plan along with everything else. This is why the morning talk is not idle, not wasted time. It is the group lowering its own risk. A poor choice can mean hunger, or injury, or a long walk that brings back nothing. Good choice can mean food and useful materials, and a safe return before dark. Your people may not have words like planning or risk or strategy. They do not need them. They understand all of it through a lifetime of doing it. And so, without anyone announcing it, the day begins to divide. A small group will go north to the nut trees, with baskets and digging sticks. 2 of the hunters will first walk the river path, not to commit to a full hunt, only to read the ground and come back knowing more than they know now. 1 person will stay near camp to mend tools. Another will keep watch over the smallest children. These are not orders handed down. They settle into place through agreement, the way water finds its level. You rise, and a basket is put into your hands. It is light now. It may not be light later. Someone checks that the child coming with the gathering group has a small carrying cord and knows to stay close. Fire is fed 1 more time before anyone steps out, because the camp must still be alive and warm when you all return to it. Nothing about this morning looks like work as we know it. No one is paid, no one clocks in, no one stands watching to see if you are trying hard enough. And yet the work is organised, fully, carefully organised, by hunger, by skill, by memory, by weather, by who is strong and who is wise, and by the trust that has grown between people who have known each other all their lives. The group begins to loosen into motion. Feet move toward the shelter mouth. Tools are lifted. A child is reminded, once more, to listen and stay near. Fire stays behind with the ones who remain. The plan is not perfect, and it does not need to be. It is good enough for this one morning, built from what the group knows right now. And tomorrow it will be built fresh again. That is how your people begin the working part of the day, not with commands, not with a clock, just with talk by a fire and the slow, certain way that knowing turns into doing. And with your basket in hand, you step out into the brightening morning toward the trees you have not yet reached. The camp is behind you now. The ground has begun to change under your feet. You walk in a loose line, the old woman first, because she knows this land better than anyone living. Then the 2 who carry the larger baskets. Then the older child who keeps asking questions. Then you, with a digging stick in one hand and the small child walking close to your hip. The grass is wet against your shins. The early air still holds the cool of the shelter, but you can feel it lifting. The sun working its way down through the trees in long pale bars. No one talks much. There is no need. The old woman sets a slow, even pace, and now and then she slows further, not because she is tired, but because something has caught her eye. A bend of leaves, a change in the soil, the way one tree along the line has turned colour before its neighbours. She reads these things the way you might read a face, without effort, without thinking about it, knowing instantly what they mean. The small child watches their own feet at first, stepping where the adults step. Then the old woman lifts her chin toward a stand of low trees ahead and says, quietly, that the nuts may be ready there, because the leaves changed early this year. The child looks and does not understand, and that is fine. Understanding takes a lifetime, for now it is enough to look where she looks. You come to the trees, and the first sign is on the ground, scatter of empty shells among the dry leaves, cracked open by squirrels and birds that got here before you. The old woman doesn't say anything. She just crouches, brushes the leaves aside with the flat of her hand, and there underneath are the good ones, whole, heavy, waiting. The child drops to their knees and snatches one up, holding it out proudly. It is empty. You can see it on their face when the old woman takes it, turns it once in her fingers, and shows them how to weigh it in the hand instead. A full nut sits heavy. A hollow one is light, a little lie of a thing that looks the same and isn't. The child takes another, frowns at it, tests it the way she showed them, this time keeps the good one. A small thing, but you can see them filing it away. Then everyone is working. Talk dies into the soft sounds of it. The rustle of leaves pushed aside, the dry knock of nuts dropping into baskets, the occasional grunt as someone shifts their weight. You pick up the heavy ones and leave the empty ones lying. The child copies you, sometimes well, sometimes badly, sometimes putting a hollow shell carefully into the basket as if it were treasure. No one corrects every mistake. There isn't time, there isn't need. The good ones outnumber the bad, and the child is learning faster than they know. The basket grows heavier in a slow, satisfying way. Nuts are worth the bending. They hold a lot of strength in a small package. They travel well, and if you keep them dry and away from animals, they will still be food long after the season has turned cold. In a world with no storehouse, that matters more than almost anything. A food you can keep is a quiet promise against the hungry weeks. After a while, the old woman straightens, presses a hand to the small of her back, and looks toward the wetter ground beyond the trees. The child wants to stay. There are still nuts. She is already moving, and the others follow. Because a wise gathering trip does not take everything from one place. One food is good, several are better. If the nuts fail tomorrow, the roots may not. If the roots fail, there may be seeds, or berries, or eggs. You spread your hopes out across the land the way you spread a load across both shoulders, so that no single failure can break you. Wet ground gives nothing away to a stranger. To your eyes there is only a patch of ordinary leaves, low and unremarkable. But the old woman stops at it and points, and tells you the good part is below the soil. Where you cannot see it, you set the digging stick into the earth at an angle and work it, loosening, easing the soil up. The work is slow on purpose. Pull too hard and the root snaps, and half of it stays in the ground, wasted. Some are too small, and those you leave. Not from any rule anyone taught you, but because everyone knows you have to come back here next season, patch you strip bare, gives you nothing the next time you are hungry. Your hands go cold and dark with mud. That is no one. Pictures the part no one pictures, that the food is hidden, and you have to dig it out of the wet earth with your fingers, and your nails fill with dirt, and it is slow, and your back begins to ache. The old woman checks the first root you free, breaks a small piece off, smells it, nods. This kind is good, but not now, not here. Later by the fire, the heat will soften it and make it safe. The child asks why you can't just eat it. Later, she says simply, by the fire. And that is the whole answer they get, and the whole answer they need. While you dig, she talks. Not in a lesson, just in the loose drifting way of someone whose hands are busy and whose mind wanders back over the years. She nods at a tree across the clearing and says her grandmother used to bring her here. One cold autumn that tree gave so many nuts they could not carry them all. She points with her chin at a low stretch of ground and says, that patch failed. The year the rains came too hard. Nothing came up. We were hungry that winter. She says it plainly, the way you'd mention an old scar. And further on, she warns the older child away from a certain plant. Pretty enough, green enough, saying only, that one, never that one, and leaving it at that. This is how the land becomes a kind of memory. There are no signs nailed to the trees, no marks on the ground, but every bend of the path has something attached to it. A year, a hunger, a death, a season of plenty. Flat warning is easy to forget. A story stays. The child may not remember do not eat the pale ones, but they will remember the old woman's face, when she said never that one, and that will keep them alive one day. Long after she is gone. The smaller child has grown tired now. Questions have stopped. So you give them a job. A few good nuts to carry in a small pouch of their own, and it changes everything. They are not being carried along anymore. They are part of the work. They walk a little straighter. They check their pouch. They are too young to be useful, and that is not the point. The point is that they are inside the day, not outside it. You check one more place. Berries sometimes grow, but the fruit hangs pale and hard, days away from ready. The old woman barely glances at them and moves on. Knowing when not to take something is as much a part of this as the taking. A pale berry left alone. Today is a sweet one waiting for you in 10 days' time. A patient gatherer eats better than a greedy one across the whole turning of the year. By now the sun is high and warm. Basket pulls hard against your hip. You shift it. Change the arm, carrying the digging stick. Walk on. There is nothing exciting about any of this. Bend, look, choose, dig, carry, move. No single dramatic moment, no story anyone will tell tonight. And yet, what is in your basket? The nuts, the roots, the few useful leaves is more reliable than anything the hunters might bring. Hunt can fail after a whole day of effort and end with empty hands. A good gathering walk almost always brings something home, even if it isn't the thing you hoped for. Tonight, people may tell stories about the hunters. They always do. The hunt is dangerous and dramatic. Danger makes a better tale than digging in the mud. But the quiet work in your basket feeds the children just the same. Maybe more so, day after ordinary day. It is the steady floor under everything else. The work that keeps everyone strong enough to do all the rest. Group finally turns back toward camp. The light has shifted, and the baskets have grown heavy, and you can feel the morning in your shoulders and your knees. You retrace the same path, but you understand it a little better than you did on the way out. It is not empty ground around the camp. It is a storehouse, a library, map. But only for those who have spent a lifetime learning how to read it. And the small child, walking beside you with their little pouch of nuts held carefully in both hands, has just begun to learn. Back at the camp, by the time the sun is high, the children are everywhere. They are not sitting in rows. No one has gathered them for a lesson. No teacher standing at the front. No marks on a board. No building with walls to keep them in. And still, all morning long, they are learning. Around the baskets, at the edge of the shelter, out on the open ground, where the small ones chase each other in sudden bursts, and then collapse, laughing, into the dust. You watch a little one toddling after an older boy, who is carrying a bundle of sticks for the fire. The small child wants to carry sticks too, so they pick up two thin, half rotten, no use to anyone, and hold them out with enormous pride. Nobody laughs at them. An adult glances over, smiles, and lets them keep their two useless sticks. They will not help the fire. But that isn't the point. The child is doing what the older ones do. Doing what the older ones do is the oldest school there is. That is really the whole secret of it. Children here learn by living right in the middle of everything, never set apart from the work of the grown world. They watch people dig food, and crack nuts, and scrape hides, and mend baskets, and feed the fire, and argue softly about where to walk tomorrow. They hear the decisions being made. They hear the warnings, the jokes, the small disagreements. Nothing useful is hidden from them. Their whole education is simply being there, soaked up a little at a time, through years of ordinary mornings, exactly like this one. Girl of 7 or so sits beside the old woman, helping sort the plants from the gathering walk. She reaches for a stem and sets it on the wrong pile. The old woman moves it back, holds the two side by side, shows her the difference. One leaf good, the other a near twin that only looks the same. The correction takes a moment, and there is no long speech, scolding. The girl looks, nods, and reaches for the next one. That is the shape of teaching here. Quick, calm, hand to hand, 1,000 small corrections that add up over a lifetime into deep knowing. Out on the open ground, two boys are throwing short sticks at a mark scratched in the dirt. The first throws go wide. One spins off sideways, one falls short, then a stick lands close, and both boys whoop as if they'd brought down a deer. To us it looks like nothing. Just kids and sticks, and a line in the dust. But their arms are quietly learning distance, and weight, and the moment to let go. One day that same motion may matter, for scaring birds off the food, for taking a small animal, for a real spear in a real hand. Today it is only a game. The game is the lesson wearing a disguise. None of this play is wasted. Running teaches balance. Climbing teaches grip and judgment, where to trust your weight and where not to. Wrestling teaches strength and limits, and how to lose without breaking the friendship. Even squabbling over whose turn comes next is teaching them something they will need their whole lives. How to argue with someone you cannot afford to lose. A small child climbs a low rock and jumps off it. The first jump is careful, knees bent, for a soft landing. The second is bolder. The third is too bold, and they hit the ground hard, a little puff of dust rising around them. Adult nearby has been watching the whole time and does not move. The child looks startled, then laughs. That is a lesson too, in its way. The body has edges, and here is where one of them is. The adult let it happen because the rock was low and the ground was soft. They would have moved in an instant if it had been higher. There is a kind of careful freedom in it. Children are allowed to test themselves, but never quite alone. And they are never quite alone, because care here is spread wide. A toddler leans on one person, then wanders off and leans on another. An older cousin hands them something safe to chew. A grandmother reaches out, without even looking, pull them back from a sharp flake of stone lying in the dirt. A young adult tying cord lets the child sit against their knee and watch. The child belongs first to their mother, yes, but also to a whole circle of aunts and uncles and grandparents and trusted others, every one of them half watching, every one of them ready. If a mother is off gathering all day, her child does not go hungry or untended. There are other arms. This is part of why your people could raise children through a hard and dangerous world. Not one set of hands, but many. Because there are many, a child learns from many. One adult has endless patience for plants and their names. Another is the one to go to for throwing or for climbing. Another tells the best stories by the fire. Another is the one who can calm you when you wake from a bad dream. Each of them passes on a different piece of what a person needs, sewed, so that by the time a child is grown, they have been taught, without anyone ever planning it, by a whole village's worth of teachers, each handing on a fragment of what they themselves were once handed. As the morning goes on, the older children drift toward real work. One carries a small basket with a few nuts in it. Another gathers dry sticks at the camp's edge. The third is given a dull old tool and a piece of bark, and allowed to scrape at it. These tasks are small, but none of them are pretend. The sticks really do feed the fire. The basket really does move the food. The scraping really does train the hand. The children are doing the actual work of the camp, just sized down to fit them. No one expects them to work like adults. That would be foolish, dangerous, and would only wear them out and make them careless. Instead, the work grows with the body. A child of 4 carries a few sticks. A child of 7 helps sort the food. A child of 10 might mind the littlest ones, or learn a path near camp on their own. Youth begins to walk farther, carry more, take a real share of the grown work. It rises in steps, each one resting on the last. Near the toolmaker, Boy is clicking small stones together, trying to copy what the grown hands do. His pieces are useless. Most of his strikes make nothing at all. The toolmaker does not hand him the good flint. That would be dangerous and a waste of precious stone. He gives the boy rougher stuff and time lets him fail. Because that is the only way the hand learns. Not from one perfect lesson, but from hundreds of clumsy tries. The wrist, slowly finding the angle, and the force, years before it ever finds them right. The boy doesn't know it, but his ruined little chips in the dust are the very beginning of a skill he may spend his whole life perfecting. And under all of it, all morning long, the children are learning to talk. They hear the names of plants and animals. They hear warnings and teasing and praise and long firelit stories. They learn not only the words, the harder things around the words, when to speak, when to stay quiet, how to listen. In a world with nothing written down, all knowledge lives in speech and memory. The child who learns to listen well is learning a kind of safety. A little later, post. You see one of the smallest children carrying something invisible against their chest, swaying as they walk, supporting a weight that isn't there. They are carrying a baby. A pretend one, in an imaginary sling, copying exactly the way the women shift their hips and brace a small body. Sweet. It looks like nothing. But one day that child may help carry a real infant while others are away gathering, and even this small game of make-believe is quietly getting them ready. So the morning passes in this mixed and easy way, half work, half play, all of it learning. No bell marks when a lesson starts or ends. A child runs, then sorts plants, then watches the toolmaker, then asks a question, then forgets the answer, then learns it again next time. That is exactly how it is meant to go. The knowledge soaks in slowly, through use, through repetition, through 1,000 small mornings strung together. And watching them, you begin to see something that is easy to miss: childhood. Here is not a waiting room before real life begins. There is no line where playing ends and living starts. These children are already becoming gatherers, makers, walkers, listeners, carriers, members of the group. Their games are not a break from learning to survive. Their games are the first soft shape of it. The world does not need a classroom when the whole world is the lesson. The fire, the plants, the tools, the older hands, the patient corrections, and the long bright hours of play in the dirt. All of it teaching the same thing over and over, without ever once calling it a lesson. This is how you live. Down by the river, the two hunters crouch low over the soft ground, and you crouch with them. The marks are here, just as the one who saw them said. Pressed into the damp earth near the water's edge, where the soil holds a shape the way nothing else does. One hunter studies a single print for a long, quiet moment. He does not reach for it or measure it. He just looks at the print, then at the ground around it, then at a stem of grass bent low beside it. To you the print is only a print. To him it is a sentence. The edges are still sharp, so the animal passed recently, after the dew settled but not long after. The depth tells him its weight. Medium, not heavy. The spacing of the strides tells him it was walking, not running, not frightened. A young adult, healthy, the right size. He reads all of this from a hollow, in the mud and the lean of a single blade of grass. And he reads it the way you read a familiar face, without effort, without naming the steps. He says almost nothing. He lifts his chin toward the low trees where the trail leads. The other hunter nods. And without any signal you could point to, the three of you begin to move. The talk is gone now. There is no need for it. Worse, there is danger in it. A raised voice carries. A snapped branch warns. So you walk in a loose, spread line, each person watching a different stretch of ground, and every little while someone stops and crouches and reads, and then you move again. It is not the chase you might imagine. There is no shouting, no running. It is slow and patient and almost quiet enough to fall asleep inside. The only sound is your own breathing and, now and then, the soft click of a stone point shifting against a wooden shaft as someone changes their grip. Trail leads on, clear at first, then harder. Where the ground hardens it nearly disappears, and the hunters slow, casting about, finding it again by a turned pebble, a scuff, a broken stem. Then it grows difficult in a different way. It crosses the older marks of other animals, several of them, all tangled together in the soft earth near a wallow. Now the skill is not in finding tracks, but in choosing the right ones, in holding on to the single animal you have been following, while 3 others try to pull your eye away. A poorer tracker would lose it here. These 2 do not. They read which print is freshest, which stride matches the one they began with, and they follow it through the confusion and out the other side. And then, beyond a low rise, you see them. The herd, several animals, grazing in a shallow valley near a waterhole, ears flicking, unhurried, not yet aware of you, comes the moment of choosing. And here is where humans do something that almost no other creature on Earth can do. You cannot outrun these animals, not for a moment. A startled deer can leave a person standing as if you were rooted to the ground. In a short sprint, almost everything in this landscape is faster than you. But speed is not the only way to catch something. Your people have another gift, stranger and harder to see, and it lives in the skin. You can sweat. You can shed heat through your bare skin as you run, mile after mile, to keep your body cool enough to keep going. Most animals cannot. They are sealed inside their fur, and when they run hard in the heat of the day, the heat builds inside them with nowhere to go. They must stop. They must rest, or they will fail from the inside out. And while they rest, you keep coming. So the hunters do not rush in for a throw. They spread wide, and they begin, not a sprint, just a steady, hurried trot toward the herd. The animals see them at once and bolt, gone over the ridge in seconds. And the humans simply follow, that same patient pace, reading the tracks, keeping the pressure on, refusing to stop. What follows is the slowest kind of hunt there is. An hour, then another. The sun climbs and the heat presses down, the kind of heat that would drop most hunters where they stood. The human bodies keep moving through it. Steady and rhythmic, footfall after footfall, sweat running freely down their backs. And every drop of it carrying away a little of the heat that would otherwise stop them to find the herd again. The animals run again, but already they are panting, tongues out, slower to start. The chase moves on, hunts. The hunters take turns at the front, one dropping back to gather themselves while another keeps the pace, sharing the effort the way they share everything. No single person could do this alone. A group, moving together, can do what looks impossible. By the time the afternoon has worn long, one animal has fallen behind the others. Stumbling now, its body overwhelmed by heat and exhaustion, unable to cool itself fast enough to keep running. A hunter closes the distance, and a single throw ends it cleanly and quickly, and that is all. The hunters do not cheer. They stand around the fallen animal for a moment, and one of them makes a small gesture, or says a few low words. We cannot know exactly what across all that time, but your people almost certainly marked a kill this way. Not triumph, something closer to respect, or gratitude, or apology to the creature that had just given its life so that the camp could live. Then comes the work, and it is its own kind of mastery. These hands know the body of this animal better than most of us know anything. Every joint, every useful piece, the hide comes away whole, to become clothing or cover. The best meat is set aside to carry. Nothing is wasted. Even the bones will be cracked later for the rich marrow inside. It is quick and skilled and unsentimental. Somehow, that too is a form of respect. to use all of it, to waste none of the gift. But there is a problem, and it is a familiar one. They are far from camp now, hours of trail behind them, and there is far more meat here than 3 people can carry, and meat left lying does not stay theirs for long. The smell carries, and other hunters with sharper noses than yours will come for it within the hour. So this becomes, in the end, a thing the whole group does together. One runner is sent back to camp at speed to bring others. The rest stay with the kill and build a small fire to hold the scavengers at bay. Begin the slow work of cutting and smoking some of the meat, so it will last the journey and beyond. Before long, more people come out from the camp. Older ones, children big enough to carry, anyone with arms to help. And the kill is shared out among them and brought home in many loads. That is how a successful hunt ends, not with one hero, but with a whole camp walking home heavy and tired in the lowering light. And here is the truth worth holding on to, thing the firelit stories tonight will quietly leave out. Most hunts do not end like this. Far more often the trail goes cold, or the animals are too fast, or the wind turns and warns them, or, after a whole day of walking, the hunters come home with nothing at all but sore legs. A hunt is a gamble. It can fail a dozen times for every time it succeeds. That is exactly why the camp never builds its day around it. Why hunters were gone, the others were digging roots and cracking nuts and minding the fire, doing the steady, reliable work that feeds the group whether the hunt comes home full or empty. When the meat does come home, though the whole mood of the camp lifts, there will be more than enough tonight. There will be fat and marrow and the deep, warm fullness that only meat brings. There will be a feeling, around the fire later, of a debt repaid to the world. The hungry days balanced for a little while by a day of plenty. But that is for the evening. For now the hunters are still out there in the long afternoon light, and the meat is still being carried in over the rise, load by load, toward the thread of smoke that means home. By the middle of the day there is a sound running under everything else in the camp. A light, steady tap, tap, tap of stone against stone. Not harsh, not hurried, just patient and purposeful and very old. Psst. An older woman sits on a flat rock near the fire, with a rounded hammerstone in one hand and a piece of flint in the other. A few seconds she strikes, and a thin flake spins off into the dust, and another joins the small scatter of rejected pieces around her feet. From across the camp, it might look like someone simply breaking rocks. It is nothing of the kind. Watch her hands and you start to see it. She is not striking at random. She is reading the stone, seeing lines of weakness inside it that your untrained eye slides right over. Each blow is a decision. Too hard and the whole piece shatters. Too soft and nothing comes away. The angle has to be near exact, point of impact chosen before the stone is touched. It is geometry done entirely by feel, by a hand that has made this same motion 10,000 times. The idea that stone tools mean simple people has it backwards. To do what she is doing takes years to learn, and a knowledge of stone so intimate it borders on tenderness. Which rocks break clean, which crumble, where to find the good ones. How to test a piece before you waste an hour on it. She has been shaping this core for a while now, knocking away flakes to leave it just the right shape. And then comes the payoff. One clean strike, and a long thin blade peels away, sharp enough to slice hide or meat, with almost no pressure at all. She runs a thumb along its edge, considers it, and nods. Good, but not finished. Bare blade is awkward to hold and easy to lose. It needs a handle. She has a piece of hardwood ready, with a slot carved into one end, and from a small pouch she takes a lump of resin she gathered and melted down before. darkened with a little crushed charcoal to make it stronger. She warms it close to the fire until it softens and turns sticky, presses it into the slot, seats the blade carefully into the resin, and then binds the joint with thin strips of sinew. As the sinew dries, it shrinks, pulling tight, locking everything together. A bond stronger than you would ever guess from looking at it. The whole thing takes her only a little while. It draws on a lifetime of practice, and on countless people before her who worked it out, strike by strike, over more years than anyone can count. For nearby, someone else is working a different material entirely. A piece of antler from an animal taken days ago, slowly being carved into a point. Antler is not like stone. It does not flake. It has to be scraped and ground and shaped. Stroke after patient stroke, with a small chisel of stone. Thin curls of it gather at the worker's feet. Every so often they stop and test the point against a thumb. It is slow, tedious work, but the finished point will be lighter than stone, and far less likely to snap on impact, and that is worth the hours. Antler is precious too, in a way stone is not. Stone is everywhere. Antler comes only when someone brings down the right animal, so you use it carefully, and for special things. And here is something the worker will not say aloud, but you can see in the work itself, care how it looks. The point is being shaped more finely than it strictly needs to be. A little too even, a little too smooth, beauty that does no practical work at all. We know this was true of your people because we still find their tools. Blades, shaped with a careful symmetry, they did not need to function. Needles with tiny patterns carved into the bone. Nobody decorates a thing they only use unless some part of them wants it to be admired. Wants it known that I made this, and I made it well. Even here, even now, there is pride in good work, and a quiet wish to be seen for it. Across the camp, the slower, heavier crafts are going on too. Woman scrapes a hide, stretched tight across a wooden frame, drawing a stone edge across it again and again with a steady, rhythmic sound. She is removing every last trace of fat and membrane from the inner surface, because anything left behind will rot later and ruin the skin. It is long work. A single hide can take hours, and even then it is not done. The skin still has to be softened, or it will dry stiff as bark and be useless. The way they soften it is one of the small wonders of this world. They rub the hide with a paste made from the animal's own brain, mixed with fat, because, as it happens, brain holds almost exactly the right substances to turn raw skin into soft, supple leather. No one here knows the chemistry of it. They only know that it works, that it has always worked, that their mothers did it this way, and their mothers before them. Someone, somewhere, far back, worked it out, by accident or by patient trying, and the knowledge was handed down ever since, parent to child, till it arrived in these hands on this ordinary afternoon. A little way off, her sister is sewing. She has a small bone awl for punching holes, and she works in a slow, exact rhythm. Punch a hole, draw the sinew through, punch the next. The stitches look rough, but they hold. The garment they make will be warm and tough and last for seasons. And the third woman is doing something that would have astonished humans not so long before. She is sewing with an actual needle, a sliver of bone with a hole drilled through one end. It seems like such a small thing, a needle, but it changed everything. With a needle you can make clothes that truly fit, shaped close to the body, layered against the cold that can kill in a single hard night. She is making winter clothing for her daughter, who sits beside her, watching, sometimes reaching to help, learning the work the only way it is ever learned here, by being close to someone doing it. And all around these makers, the quieter mending goes on. Someone twists plant fibres into cord, rolling them against the thigh and feeding in more as the strand grows longer. And cord is everywhere in this camp. Binding tools, lashing bundles, holding the shelter, carrying loads. Someone feeds a fresh strip through the split side of a basket, and the basket, no longer perfect, is good enough again. Someone moves a sleeping skin off the damp ground, ties a loose shelter cover down against the wind that may come with the western clouds. None of this will make a story tonight. No one remembers the afternoon they retwisted a cord. But this is where survival actually lives, far more than in the hunt. In the small, unglamorous care, repeated and repeated, basket that breaks miles from camp, spills a day's food into the dirt. A shelter tie that gives way, lets the rain in on sleeping children. Seam that fails on the trail leaves skin bare to the cold. So the repairs happen now, here in the calm of the afternoon, while the light is good. And there is time, a small fix today, standing quietly between the group and a much larger trouble tomorrow. And there is something else you notice, sitting among all this work. Not everyone is good at everything. The flint napper is genuinely expert, decades deep in her craft. The antler carver is fine at bone and antler, but only passable at stone. The woman with the needle is simply the best leather worker in the group. And when fine clothing is needed, it is her hands people turn to, and others quietly take on her share of the gathering or cooking in return. It is not a market, not really, but it is the beginning of one. A recognition that different people are good at different things, and that the whole group is richer when each does what they do best and shares the result. The afternoon light moves slowly across the camp, the sounds of making move with it. The tap of stone, the scrape of hide, the soft pull of sinew through a punched hole, the low murmur of people working side by side. Patient stroke after patient stroke, they are building the things that make this life possible. Not in one great burst, but the way everything real here gets built. A little at a time, by hands that know exactly what they are doing. And as the heat of the day reaches its fullest, even these busy hands begin, one by one, to slow. The heat of the day reaches its fullest, and one by one the busy hands go still. Someone sets down a half-scraped hide and stretches their back. Flint napper rests her hammerstone in her lap and just sits for a while, watching the smoke twist up off the fire. Child flops into the shade and lies there, breathing hard from some game, staring up at the leaves. The whole camp seems to exhale. Nobody declares a rest. It simply arrives, the way the heat does, and people give in to it. This is not laziness, though it might look like it to us. In a world where your own body is your only real tool, resting it is part of staying alive. Tired body makes mistakes. A careless step turns an ankle. A shaking hand slips on a sharp edge. Push too hard every single day, and you are weak on the day the group needs you strong. So the rest is not stolen time. It is maintenance, necessary as eating. And here is something that may surprise you, because it cuts against everything we have been told. We picture our ancestors, worked to exhaustion from dawn to dark, scrabbling at the very edge of starvation. But when people went and lived among foraging groups and actually counted the hours, they found something else, much of the real work of survival. The gathering, the hunting, the cooking, the mending, often took only a handful of hours in a day. The rest of the time was simply life, resting, talking, playing, sitting together, doing nothing in particular. It is possible, more than possible, people lying in this shade had more empty, unhurried hours in a week than most of us get in a month. Hold on to that thought. We will come back to it tonight. For now, watch what they do with all that time, because it is so simple, it is almost startling. They lie on their sides, in the shade, and half listen to the murmur of their relatives. They sit near the fire, turning a smooth pebble over and over in their fingers. They watch the smoke or the slow drift of clouds, or a line of ants crossing the dust. There are no screens here, no words to read, no music piped in from somewhere else, so the stillness does not feel empty. It feels full of insect hum and bird call. There's a sigh of wind in the grass, breathing of people you love close by. In that kind of quiet, the line between you and the world goes thin. You are not a busy mind, glancing at nature through a window on your day off. You are an animal in a place, soaked in it, paying attention to it without trying. And out of that easy quiet, the talk begins. It starts low and idle. Someone mentions who found the good roots. Someone laughs about a young hunter who slipped and went down hard near the river this morning. Someone notes, half under their breath, that a certain person took a larger share of the dried meat than was really theirs to take. It sounds like nothing, like the small, drifting talk of people with time on their hands. But it is doing something important, and everyone knows it without ever saying so, in a group this small. You cannot simply walk away from someone you dislike. You will sleep 10 feet from them tonight, and tomorrow night, the night after that. There are no walls to put between you, no other town to move to. So how do you keep people decent to one another? No chief to command it, no law written down, no one to lock anyone away. You use the oldest tools people have ever had. You talk, the story of who was selfish at the meal, who was kind to a sick elder, who held a grudge and who let it go. That story travels around the fire, gets told and retold, and by the end everyone knows. Nothing is written, nothing is forgotten. This is how reputation becomes a kind of wealth here, more lasting than any object. A person who shares freely is remembered, and when their own luck turns and they are the hungry one, group remembers and helps. A person who hoards is remembered too, and finds, somehow, people are a little slower to share with them next time. No one announces a punishment. The pressure is softer than that, stronger. The simple weight of being known, completely, by everyone you will ever see. When a real friction breaks out, two people wanting the same tool, a sharp word, an old jealousy flaring, it is rarely settled by force. It is settled by an older voice. An elder who has watched 100 such quarrels comes and sits between the two, and speaks slowly, and does not take a side so much as remind everyone of things. Of the hard winter they all came through together. Kindness. One of them once did the other, years ago, that the other has forgotten in their anger. The elder does not give orders, they give memory, and memory cools things in a way commands never could. You see it happen this afternoon. A small dispute, two raised voices, and then an old woman drifting over, saying something quiet, mentioning some shared trouble from seasons past, and the heat just goes out of it. One person looks down, the other shrugs. It is over, and no one has lost face, because no one was forced. That is the whole art of it. In a band of 30, a feud is genuinely dangerous. Let two families stop helping each other, and suddenly each side is too few to defend itself, too weak to move far, too exposed to the next bad winter. So the whole way these people live tilts, quietly and always, toward making peace. Teasing instead of accusing, complaining sideways instead of head-on, singing a song that hints at someone's bad behaviour rather than naming them. Soft pressure applied constantly that lets a person change their ways without ever being shamed into a corner. This is why the elders are not pushed aside here, the way the old so often are in our world. An old body cannot chase a deer or dig all day, but the mind packed with 60 years of living only grows more valuable. The old man who can no longer hunt still remembers which stars mark the turning of the seasons. The grandmother, who no longer walks far, still knows which plant calms a fever and which one kills. When a child burns hot with sickness in the night, it is the old ones who remember the last such fever, and what was done, and whether the child lived. When smoke shows on the far horizon, it is the old ones who remember the last time the land burned, which way the animals fled, which valley stayed safe. In a world with no books, an elder is where the past is kept. To lose one suddenly is to watch a great store of knowledge vanish in an afternoon, the way a library might vanish in a single fire. And this small circle around the fire is not the whole of your world either. Beyond the hills, along the river, past the edge of the land you know by heart, there are other bands. People who speak a tongue close to your own, tied to you by distant blood or old friendship or simple habit. You may see them only a few times a year, but those meetings are among the most important things that ever happened to you. When the season turns generous, when the herds gather, the fish run thick, or one valley fills with ripe fruit, word spreads, not by any message you could hold, but mouth to mouth, band to band, until several groups drift toward the same rich place. And there, things move from hand to hand. A shell from the far coast, piece of fine stone from a place your people have never walked, ochre, hides, carved bone, dried food, and an object may travel hundreds of miles over the years. Never in one journey, but passed along through many people, many meetings, many shared meals like the ones to come tonight. People meet too, in the other sense. A small band cannot pair off, only within its own 30 faces. Generation after generation, that way lies weakness and sickness in the children. So the young notice one another across these gatherings, and some leave with a new partner, and some arrive as one. And every such joining stitches two bands a little closer, and news travels with the people and the objects. A better way to fix a point to a shaft. A valley where the winter is kinder, a new danger seen prowling the next range over. There are no messengers, no marks on a page, but the knowledge ripples outward all the same, carried in memory and speech across the whole wide land. So when you picture these people, do not picture them alone. One small group huddled in the dark, cut off from all the rest. Picture instead a web, faces you know better than your own reflection, here at this fire, and beyond them, fainter but real, a great net of other faces, other fires, bands, all loosely held together by trade and marriage and memory, and the steady passing along of what people know. That web is the thing that truly kept your ancestors alive. Not the strongest spear or the sharpest blade. The strongest individual, alone, did not last long out here. What lasted was this: people bound to one another by care, by debt, by gossip, by shared blood and shared story, watching out for each other across the long days and the longer nights. And now, as the heat finally begins to ease, and the shadows start to lean, bonds will draw everyone back in once more. Toward the fire, toward the evening, toward the warmest part of the whole long day. The light is leaving now, and the world is pulling itself inward toward the fire. The long shadows have stretched and joined into dusk. Colours drain slowly out of the land, and from every direction, people are drifting back to the same small point of warmth. The gatherers with their heavy baskets, the menders setting down their work. The children pulled in from the edges by the same quiet gravity that has drawn humans toward firelight for longer than we can imagine. And tonight, the hunters are home too, and the meat has come in load by load over the rise, so there is a fullness in the air that doesn't come on most evenings. A good night, a night of plenty. Before the meal, in the half-dark, something happens that has nothing to do with staying alive. and everything to do with being human. Someone is grinding red ochre against a flat stone, the soft earth turning to powder, mixed with a little fat until it becomes paint. Finger dips in, and a red line is drawn down another person's arm. Maybe it marks them as one of this band. Maybe it belongs to some small ritual whose meaning is lost to us now. You cannot read it exactly, but you can feel that it means something, that the mark is a kind of word, spoken without speech. Nearby, someone is threading tiny beads of bone onto a cord. Slow work, each one pierced and smoothed by hand. Beads will not help anyone run faster or dig deeper. They are simply beautiful, and being beautiful is enough. People have been making things like this for longer than they have been farming, longer than they have been building, for almost as long as they have been people. Because survival was never the whole of the story. There was always also this, the need to belong, to be seen, to make something lovely and carry it close to the body. And then, in the dark, a sound. Someone taps a stick against a hollow log, a slow heartbeat of a rhythm. Someone lifts a small flute carved from a bird's bone. Your people made these real instruments tens of thousands of years ago, and a thin, clear note rises over the crackle of the fire. For a moment everyone goes still. Then the note repeats, more sure of itself. Another person claps the rhythm. Feet begin to move, and the camp that was settling towards sleep is suddenly, briefly, alive, swaying, breathing together, voices rising and falling as one. That is the quiet magic of it. When people move in time together, something loosens in them. Fear lets go. The boundary between one person and the next goes soft. For as long as the rhythm lasts, this little band of fragile humans becomes a single thing, warm and unafraid in the middle of a very large dark. When the music fades, the food is shared out. The best of it goes to the children, and the elders first, the way it always does. People eat sitting, leaning, half lying against one another, and as the sharp edge of hunger softens, the talk turns slow and easy. The hunters tell how the chase went, how the animal ran farther than they expected. A gatherer laughs about tipping half a basket of nuts into a stream, and then, when the bellies are full, and the fire has burned down to a deep, steady glow, the stories begin. Someone, the best talker in the band, the one everyone leans toward, starts to speak. Maybe it is the tale of a great hunt from years ago, when the wind shifted and nearly ruined everything. Maybe it is the flood that carried away half a camp, clever animal, who stole fire from the sky, or the spirits, the old ones say, live out past the edge of the firelight. Children lean against their parents, eyes heavy, drifting in and out. And these stories are not only for pleasure, world with nothing written down. The story is the memory of the whole people. Folded inside the tale of the flood is a warning about where not to camp. Inside the hunt is a lesson about patience. Inside the trickster animal is a rule about greed. The children listening half asleep tonight are being taught, gently, without ever knowing it. Handed the knowledge they will need to keep their own children alive. One day, long after the old storyteller is gone, and here, with the fire low and the stories winding down, I want to come back to the question we started with. The one I asked you at the very beginning, when the light was still grey and the day had not yet begun. What did these people do all day, with no jobs at all? Now you know, they woke when the light woke them. They kept the fire alive. They gathered and dug and cracked nuts and mended what was broken. They taught their children simply by living beside them. They tracked and sometimes hunted and often came home empty and were fed anyway. They rested in the heat of the day. They kept the peace with patience and memory instead of force, painted their skin and strung beads, and made music in the dark. They told their dead into stories, so they would not be wholly lost. A day with no wage, no schedule, no boss, no clock, and yet not one empty hour in it. And here is the strange, quiet truth at the bottom of it all. We built machines to do our hardest work. We made lights to turn the night into day. We carry more knowledge in our pockets than any of these people could have dreamed of in a lifetime. We freed up our time, and then, somehow, filled it all back up with noise. And many of us ended the trade with less true rest than they had. Fewer unhurried evenings, fewer nights where we simply sat with the people we love and watched the dark come down. So when you ask who really had the fuller day, them with their empty hands and their full hours, or us, the answer is not as simple as we were taught. Strip away all the tools, and the things that mattered to them are the same things that still matter to you tonight. The circle of people who know your name and would share their last food with you. The urge to make something beautiful that serves no purpose but to be beautiful. The quiet of the natural world, older than language, that still settles something in you when you hear rain on a window or wind in the trees, and the simple need to know that what you do each day is for someone. They had all of that, fully, with no jobs to give it to them, just woven into the day itself. So the camp settles towards sleep. The sleeping skins are pulled close. Children are guided to the warmer spots between adults. A sharp tool is nudged away from where feet might find it in the dark. Someone lays one last branch on the fire, not to cook now, only to keep a little life in the coals until morning. And the sparks rise up and wink out, briefly imitating the stars before they go. People lie close together, because closeness is warmth, and warmth is safety. Someone will stay half awake near the fire, listening the way someone always does. Out beyond the ring of light, the night goes on. The rustle of small animals, the far-off call of a bird, once, long lonely note of something larger, much farther away. No one stirs. They have heard it 1,000 times. They are wrapped in every protection they have built for themselves. A careful camp, a tended fire, a bed of grass between them and the cold ground, a circle of people who would wake at the first cry. As vulnerable as they will ever be, eyes closed, weapons out of reach, and somehow also safe. And thank you, truly, for staying with me through this whole long day, for walking out to the nut trees, crouching by the tracks at the river, and sitting by the fire while the stories were told. If this helped quiet your mind and carry you towards sleep, that is the whole reason I make these. Welcome to stay a while longer with this channel if you'd like. And if you feel moved to, you can leave a comment and tell me where in the world you are right now, and what the night looks like outside your own small camp. A city window, a quiet room, rain on the roof somewhere far away. I always read them. It's a strange and lovely thing, all of us drifting off to sleep at the edges of the same old human story. But you don't need to do anything at all. Not now. Right now you can just let the day end, the way they did. The way people have for longer than there have been words for it. Fire in the camp has burned down to deep, steady coals. The last of the band are asleep, and above them, above you, the same moon is moving slowly across the sky, the same stars, only a little shifted by all the time in between, but still recognizably themselves. 40,000 years ago, a child blinked up at those same stars, fighting sleep for one more story. Someone reached over in the dark and smoothed their hair, and told them softly that the hunt could wait until morning. Tonight, you can believe the same thing. The hunt can wait until morning. The world can wait until morning. For now you are warm. You are safe. Fire is still glowing. And you can rest under the same ancient sky.